What's the sentiment in Israel? Are the Israeli people in favor of a ceasefire?
No, they're largely opposed to it, about 90%, and I'll explain why in a minute. First, let me just say, I don't know if the Secretary General said that or not, but the only thing that's morally wrong is any kind of comparison between Khaled Mashal, who's the leader of a terror organization, no different than Al-Qaeda, and the Prime Minister of the Jewish and Democratic State of Israel. I think it would be, it's completely unacceptable rhetoric to actually say something like that. I don't know if the UN Secretary General did. If he did, then he should actually retract his comment on that issue.
Sir, the Prime Minister, Benjamin Netanyahu, he said he's aware of the international criticism of the proportionality of Israel's military response, but he also added no country on earth would allow its people to be terrorized by daily rocket fire. So what is Israel's objective at this point? Is it to stop the rocket attacks and destroy tunnels used to smuggle weapons and militants, or is it to crush Hamas?
No, we're doing three things, basically. We're trying to end the rocket attack against our cities, and the Prime Minister of Israel is completely right. No country would tolerate two-thirds of its people living in bunkers, having to go there multiple times during the day. You can imagine what would happen in the United States if over 200 million Americans would have to flee to find shelter every few minutes during the course of the day. It's unacceptable. So we have to stop the rocket attacks against Israel. The second thing we have to do is we have to destroy this tunnel network, this vast labyrinth of underground tunnels that Hamas has built in Gaza in order to tunnel under our border, come out on the other side, and kill our soldiers and civilians. A couple days ago, they killed 5 Israeli soldiers. We were fortunate to avoid a mass casualty attack by them penetrating into Israel, going into a small Jewish community and killing hundreds of people and maybe kidnapping others. So we have to take action to remove these tunnels. And the third thing we have to do is we have to make sure that after a ceasefire is in place, that a mechanism is built to ensure that we're not in another round of fighting 6 months or a year and a half from now, and Hamas simply rearms and becomes an even greater force than it is today. We've hit Hamas very hard. We've degraded their capabilities. We have to ensure that we have a sustainable ceasefire and that Hamas is weakened and we don't face a 4th round now in another year or year and a half.
But, Mr. Ambassador, I'm sure you're aware of some of the rhetoric that has been coming out of the Gaza Strip. A lot of the officials of Hamas, they are saying that there will be retaliatory action for this. They're saying that the international community is outraged by the video, by the pictures that it's seeing, and that Israel should be prepared for some sort of retaliatory action. How do you respond to that?
Listen, I want to repeat again. Hamas is a genocidal terror organization. Their charter calls for the murder of Jews worldwide. Hamas was celebrating on 9/11 when thousands of Americans were killed. Hamas condemned the United States for the killing of Osama bin Laden. That is Hamas. That's the enemy we're dealing with. Obviously, we do not target in any way civilians in Gaza, but we are fighting against an enemy who not only deliberately fires rockets at our civilians, but places weapons in UN schools, that places their military command centers under hospitals, and uses mosques as weapons depots. They are using their own civilians as human shields in the hope that we will hit them, and then everybody who sees those pictures, obviously, they're heart-wrenching. You know, I'm a father. Whenever you see a picture like that of a child who's killed, an innocent civilian who's killed, that should affect any decent person. The question is, where is the outrage of the world going to be directed? Is it going to be directed at Israel for defending itself against such an enemy, or directed at Hamas for both targeting our civilians and hiding behind their civilians?
Mr. Ambassador, let's talk a moment about the politics on Capitol Hill. Lawmakers there, Congress, trying to finalize that $225 million missile defense package for Israel. What are you hearing about when or if that deal will be completed?
Well, I don't know what's going to happen in Congress. I can tell you we came to the U.S. administration. I was in the White House last week, and we asked for additional assistance for Iron Dome, which has saved countless Israeli lives. That's that anti-missile system that's a joint U.S.-Israel system where it's Israeli technology. A lot of it is financed by the United States. We deeply appreciate that this system has broad bipartisan support. And we deeply appreciate the fact that President Obama has acceded to Israel's request, and we hope it will move through Congress as soon as possible. We'll just have to wait and see how that will happen.
Mr. Ambassador, we have about a minute left. The late Israeli Prime Minister Yitzhak Rabin, he once said of the Israelis and the Palestinians, and I'm quoting, "We are destined to live together on the same soil in the same land." Do you believe that is the destiny of both sides?
Of course. Listen, we have to find a way to achieve a lasting peace with the Palestinians. The policy of the government of Israel is that the solution is two states for two peoples, where a demilitarized Palestinian state recognizes the Jewish state of Israel. I hope people understand, because of what they've seen in Gaza over the last few weeks, and how Israel withdrew from Gaza in 2005, only to face the militarization of Gaza, the placement of all these rockets, all these missiles into Gaza, and to turn Gaza into a terror base against Israel. Why we need demilitarization, both in Gaza and in the West Bank, if we're ever going to have a sustainable peace between Israelis and Palestinians. Let's hope that the violence ends and we can get back to peacemaking as soon as possible.